Waiting. Waiting.
Hurry up and wait. Is the name of the game.
Are we live? This is Facebook Live, and I'm excited.
That's the real live question. Are we live?
Are we live? We are live.
Coming at ya.
Welcome to Facebook Live. I'm Erica Ehm. This is Tessa Virtue. And introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Winnie Harlow, and my birthday's tomorrow. Don't forget that.
So we're here. We're going to have some fun, but we're also going to have some very serious conversations. Thanks to Dove, who brought us all together to talk about how the media treats women in sports and in the public eye so differently from men. They sexualize women. They talk about the way we look and not the accomplishments, not what we do. And for me, this is a big deal because our girls are growing up watching the media. I mean, we have to admit that we're all affected by what we see in the media. So we want to change the conversation, and I want you to help us out. I mean, this is the marvel of live broadcasting, which is we get to actually have a conversation with you, and that's what we're going to do today. So I'm not going to do all the talking, I promise. I will be asking you lots of questions, but I also want you to weigh in. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your questions, and we're going to answer as many as we can today about how the media focuses so much on women's appearances and not what we do and not our achievements. And what we're doing, actually, it's kind of naughty, but Dove has put up a large screen in downtown Toronto at Yonge and Dundas, and they're calling out the media for some of the comments that they've made about women in sport and commenting on their, the way they look rather than their achievements. And if you go to www.dove.ca/have your say, and you will see some of the comments that some of these media outlets are making about people like you. And it's pretty shocking, actually, that they say these kinds of things.
Well, it's so powerful because it's one thing to just talk in these broad terms about the media covering athletes, but it's another to actually see them in text right in front of you. And that's there for all of these athletes and young girls reading them to internalize. And that no doubt affects their self-esteem and confidence.
Absolutely. And this is why I love the whole Dove program, is that they are, in a variety of ways, continuing the conversation about self-esteem. And one of them is how we are thrown images that are so negative and then makes us question ourselves and our own achievements. So I want to introduce these two. I've been doing all the talking. My Beauty, My Say is our hashtag. So if you want to tweet about this or leave comments, use that hashtag. But let me introduce to you our guests, because it's very exciting to have both of you here, because you're both very, very accomplished. So Winnie, I want to talk about you first,
you really
because
want to call me Harlow.
I know, because I love that name. It's very theatrical. But what you've achieved in your life, I think, is pretty remarkable. Being a model is one thing. To get to the top is hard enough. But you were diagnosed with vitiligo at a young age, and you wanted to be a model, and people poo-pooed you. They said that would never happen.
Actually, I didn't even want to be a model. It was something that kind of came naturally. People, actually close friends and family, told me I should model, and I was like, well, I mean, I've never seen anyone like me before, so maybe it's not possible.
I love that. I've never seen one like me before. To me, that is what is beautiful. You're one of a kind.
Yeah. And I decided that I would just do it as a hobby because I didn't think it could get anywhere. And I mean, it did.
Here she is, like top model, which is amazing.
Thank you.
And then Tessa Virtue, what is it? I think you're a gold medal medalist, and with your figure skating partner, or is it figure skating or ice dancing? What are you most comfortable with?
Either.
Scott Moore was your partner for many, many years. I mean, since you were kids, you've been skating.
Almost 19 years we've skated together.
Amazing.
It's crazy.
And so you have really achieved a lot, and you've been in the public eye. It's interesting that you have been in the public eye as an athlete, and yet you're in a sport that really focuses on the external physical beauty. So how has that affected the way you approach your sport?
It's a unique balance because, of course, the aesthetics and appearance is part of it, and that's part of the judging. That's part of the political scene in figure skating. That's part of, standing out from other teams, and yet sometimes that can take over. And instead, it was always a focus, much thanks to the amazing support staff we always had around us. It was a focus for us to just let our skating speak for itself. And it's interesting being in a partnership with a male because it's been so clear over the 19 years and our kind of growing up in the public eye, it's so clear how we've been covered differently in the media. And I just love campaigns like this because it allows us a platform to speak about that, speak openly and honestly. And, being in figure skating, most people see me in costumes and hair and makeup and podiums, and it can seem quite glamorous. And I'm very cognizant of that as young girls are watching. And yet there's so much more to it. There's so much that goes into the athleticism that often goes unrecognized.
Well, of course. I mean, you're an athlete. My daughter dances. I see the amount of hours that she puts into it, and yet we focus on the physical beauty. And I think to me that is what irks me. And also for myself, being in the public eye, I was on Much Music many, many years ago, way before your time. And still when people come up to me today, they go, "Oh my God, Erica Ehm, I loved you. You were so hot. You were so beautiful." And I think, well, actually, is that how you see me? Is that what makes me important?
But what I think is really interesting is what I always say is we blame the media a lot, where the media gives us what we ask for. You know what I mean? So doing things like this, where like we are asking now for a change and we're doing something proactive about it, now the media is going to have no choice but to give us what we want.
Well, I hope so. I mean, this is where our audience comes in right now.
My career speaks for it. You know what I mean?
Well, you're redefining beauty on your own terms.
But people want to see that redefinition of beauty. So that's why I'm becoming so popular, because it is something that everyone can relate to,
Are you popular just because of the physical, or do you think, because you're doing it to yourself in a way, right? What's wrong? Oh, sorry, Mike. To me, it's not. I mean, the fact that you're physically attractive and interesting looking is part of it, but you also are very comfortable speaking out, that you have achieved a lot.
But I'm not saying that it's about my skin in particular. I'm just saying that I am every woman. Do you know what I mean? Like, as Whitney Houston would say, exactly. It's not about me having a skin condition. I don't relate to people who have a skin condition. I relate to everyone because we are all different. So, you know what I mean? It's not just about seeing a slim thing or, whatever the media portrays as beautiful. It's about seeing everyone in the media.
And I think that this is a perfect time to remind everybody watching this that we are doing this so that we change the conversation in the media. So that, for example, that billboard at Yonge and Dundas is making a statement that women do not accept this kind of treatment, the bias towards women who are always judged on the way that they're looked and not the way that do we have any questions or comments from people at this time? Because I would love to. Oh, we do. And Katja, love that you are talking to these two women. Well, thank you, Katja. I love it too. And what I love even more is the concept that we are potentially, as women, as moms, going to try and change the conversation and not accept it anymore. I think that's really important. And why are you so outspoken about this?
Because I feel like people try to put me in a box where I only represent a small amount of people. And I love that Dove has put me on a panel with someone who is just another strong woman. Do you know what I mean? It's not like we have anything super similar or super different. We are just strong women. So I appreciate being able to speak about being a strong woman first before being a model or being an athlete or, whatever else we have that is different about us.
Tessa, was there a comment that you remember, or comments, there must be, that were written about you or said about you in the media that you still remember to this day?
Many. How long do we have here? I think one that really stuck with me was more an attribution made about a personality trait. So it was, Tessa is heavy, therefore she must be lazy. And it was that judgment of character that actually affected me the most, because there I was, you know, very conscious of my body fat composition. I mean, as an athlete, that's very important, and I was all muscle. I tend to put on muscle quite easily. So maybe it didn't have the ideal kind of lean aesthetic for an ice dancer, but it was that lazy comment, and there I was working 10, 11 hours a day in the gym, you know, skating powerfully and trying to be strong, and that really affected me, of course.
In what way?
Well, I internalized that and then think, am I? You know, is that true? Or does that mean that I'm too heavy? And, you know, it's interesting that that's the comment instead of maybe Scott is small. You know,
oh my
just
gosh,
to flip it around.
Or that you're powerful.
Or that I'm powerful and I'm strong and or muscular.
Why is it always your fault, though? Why is it always our fault? I didn't think about it that way.
So that certainly stuck with me, and that's something that, you know, I've worked to kind of overcome, and then sort of embrace that. Like, that has to be my confidence, and I have to be feminine on the ice, and I love that we're a man and a woman, and I'm not trying to be a frail little girl.
Who would want to be a frail little girl? This is an era of power and powerful women, and that's what this conversation, for those of you who have tuned in, that's what we're talking about today. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to have our say and to redefine beauty, and also to redefine the conversation that's happening in the media, and not just the media, amongst ourselves as well. The way that we comment on people sometimes, oh my God, you're so beautiful. Yeah, but what about who I am deep inside? Maybe you're not an athlete, maybe you're an intellect, but it is your power, that is your strength. Those are the achievements that we have that a lot of people, we're just, as a culture, so obsessed with the superficial. And what we're trying to do here is change the conversation, and specifically as it applies to athletes today, since this summer is going to be filled with a lot of women who are in the public eye, who are very amazing athletes. I'm going to tell you something interesting. Before I had this conversation, I went online and I was like, who are some of the top tennis players? So I Googled top tennis players 2015. And the first 10 results were 10 sexiest tennis players, the hottest female tennis players. There was nothing about these tennis players and their strength. And to me, that says it all. And I actually have somewhere here, let me just find this for you. According to a survey, 64% of female athletes featured on magazine covers are shown in passive poses, while men are portrayed in action-oriented imagery, emphasizing their skill in their respective sport. So, do you have to deal with that?
Definitely. I think, you know, that can be sexualized and glamorized, and, you know, females certainly have that extra hurdle to climb. And why is there that disparity? You know, I think, why is that the precedent that's been set? I think I'm so proud to be part of this campaign that is changing the commentary and challenging that. And, you know, I can speak to it from an athletic standpoint, but it's so interesting seeing other stories come in with the My Beauty, My Say hashtag, and realizing that everyone has these feelings.
Oh, yes.
Everyone has this negative self-talk. Everyone has body image issues, and it's so heartbreaking. I just wish that we could come together and embrace that, you know, those qualities that make us.
So Colleen says, I love the three of you being advocates for female athletes. And I agree with that. I think that it's a very powerful thing that you're doing right now in speaking.
You know?
Of course, girls and women who are achieving great things and then being described as either attractive or not attractive,
right,
or
exactly.
fat, or who cares about the way that we look? And so this conversation is important for a lot of the moms to be hearing as well, because we also do it to ourselves, but also we pass it on. Our kids watch everything. There's another comment here that has come in.
That we're not just focusing on like young girls. Thank you. And we're not just focusing on young girls or, you know, a certain industry or anything like that. It's everyone. We all have these issues, and bringing it to light that we are all equal and we are all dealing with these things. And in order to change it, we need to change the conversation.
So Maya has asked the question, how do we change the conversation? This is a huge question, because yes, we have the power for the moment as we broadcast live here and we start the conversation, and there's the My Beauty, My Say hashtag, and we're calling out the media, but then it ends. So how do we continue?
But does it have to, though?
Well, I ask you that. How do we actually change the conversation?
People like, or companies like Dove are amazing at keeping the conversation going, you know? After one campaign is the next. It's not like a fad or, you know, something that just comes and goes because it's in right now. They choose to continue the conversation, and I feel like we just need to, you know, follow the lead of companies that are making it better for us to appreciate the more important things, like our achievements.
And there is a saying, it's like vote with your dollars.
Right.
So to supporting companies like Dove, but there are many other companies that are really embracing the inner beauty and the inner strength of women. How do you think that we can change the conversation, particularly in the world of athletics and the media?
Well, we start by having the conversation, and that's groundbreaking. Campaigns like this are really changing the landscape, and I think encouraging other people to weigh in and share their own perspective. But you know, I have a little niece who's 2 years old, and I think we need to have role models that do speak out and challenge the media and stand up for strong women and talk about beauty in these terms, so that when she grows up, that's what she knows, and she doesn't know anything else. I mean, we're all reaching for these completely unrealistic expectations and these standards of perfection that don't exist. And I just hope that by the time my little niece grows up, she's able to identify her own beauty and her own confidence.
I'm going to ask you a difficult question. Let's say you're competing, or even before you're competing, and you hear some writer, some reporter, make some sort of a sexist or superficial comment about the way you look. Is there anything that you can actually do? Is it politically okay for you to respond publicly to those people, or could it actually hurt your career?
That's a very good question, but I think, you know, it has to be politically okay to stand up for yourself. And, you know, as we're seeing with campaigns like this, there is support garnered around that. The very foundation of that, you know, people come together and rally for that. And I'm hoping that comments like that in the media become rarer. But I think they have to be called out. And if that does happen, I'll remember this conversation and I'll think about you. And I hope that I'm courageous enough to stand up to it.
Yeah, I think it's really important, not just for the three of us here, but for everybody who is watching right now, to go to the dove.ca/have your say and have your say. Call out those media outlets who are making these really outrageous, really in bad taste comments about very hurtful. Yeah. That's another thing, that they're hidden, you know, behind their computers, and they're able to say whatever they want to say. They are not understanding or appreciating or reflecting the amount of effort that we put in and athletes put into what it takes to get to where you are, and they diminish it with, you know, you're not attractive or you're too heavy or something like that, which is completely irrelevant to the art and the athleticism that you've worked so hard to achieve. The skill,
the time and effort.
The athletic pursuit, I mean, that moment is so brief when they have the spotlight. And I just think about how vulnerable someone is when they're standing there all alone with the world watching. And who are we to judge them on how they look alone?
So Winnie, for you as a role model, because that becomes your job, you are now...
I prefer inspiration.
Okay.
I love to inspire, and I love to take inspiration from others. So I prefer inspiration.
Young girls who are looking up at you, because now, to my dismay, there is such an obsession amongst our young girls to be gorgeous, to be models, and sometimes not to be scientists or not to be, you know, but you're actually, you have a very, you have a potential profound effect on young girls. So you're doing this. Right. How else do you perpetuate strength and empowerment amongst young girls?
I try to also let girls, but you know, anyone who does look to me for inspiration, know that my message isn't that everyone can be a model. You know, that's not what I'm aiming for. It's if you put your mind to what you want, you can achieve it. And that's what's important. Not being on a magazine or, you know, doing this, doing that. No, if your goal is to be a doctor, work hard, go to school, you know, get your education and make that your runway, you know?
I like that. That's a good one. You have chosen a very difficult industry, though, because you put yourself out there to be judged on a day-to-day basis. How do you deal with that?
I think it goes back to a piece of advice that I always give. Whenever anyone asks me, what piece of advice would you give to someone who is feeling low about themselves or anything like that, is your opinion should matter more than anyone else's opinion on yourself. So while I do, for my job, put myself out there for all the scrutiny in the world, my opinion of myself is so much stronger than what anyone else can say about me, and I feel like that's the way it should be, you know?
That's a really important message, and I guess I could throw that over to you too, Tessa, because when you're competing, you are literally being judged. Do the judges, do they base it purely on athleticism, or do they also take in the aesthetics of what you're doing and how you look? Literally your face?
Of course, and everyone has an opinion that they're really very willing to share, and I think it's easy to get lost in that, and it's easy to get sort of consumed with trying to please everyone else in sport or otherwise, and it's coming back to that, kind of defining your own core values, and I like having a personal mission statement and a professional mission statement. It just makes decisions and processing information much easier when I can refer to that, because that's who I am and that's who I want to be, and really it doesn't matter even that I'm a great skater, it's just that I want to be a good person, right? So somehow those are the values we have to instill in the next generation, that it's about those internal core beliefs and how you view yourself.
Tessa Virtue is over here, and Winnie Harlow. I'm so thrilled to be talking to the two of you, and we're talking about the importance of women and actually men speaking out and saying to the media, stop judging us on the way that we look and start judging us on what we're doing, on our achievements, our success. And this is part of a larger Dove campaign where we're trying to help inspire women to feel confident about their beauty. And when we talk about beauty, it's about inner beauty. Am I right? And I tell this to my daughter all the time, and I'd love to hear your comments on this, how, because our world is so obsessed with beauty and the superficial, how do we internalize that and make our girls understand that it's not about the makeup that you wear, and it's not about the short skirts that you wear, it's about who you are. I've mentioned that my daughter is a dancer, and I have been telling her since she was very young that she is powerful and that she is strong. But every once in a while I say to her, oh my God, you're so beautiful. And I go, wrong word. Because her beauty emanates from her strength and from her abilities. And when you were raised, when your mom, your dad, did they say you were beautiful? Like, what kind of messaging did you get when you were a kid?
Well, it's interesting. Well, first of all, I was a little tomboy, and I was quite rough around the edges. But I grew up truly believing that I could do anything. And that sort of belief is still with me today. And I thank my mother and my grandmother, who were very strong, independent women. I thank them for that. But if I wanted to be an astronaut, I believed I could do it. If I wanted to do, anything. And that sense of kind of being limitless and knowing that if I could just dream big, I would work hard to get there. But we all know, there's nothing more beautiful than authenticity, than finding something you're passionate about. I love when someone loves what they do, and I love when someone knows who they are. I think that radiates, and that energy is contagious.
That's exactly what I tell my daughter.
I also don't think it's not about saying that or excluding the thought that someone is beautiful, but just educating on what the thought of beauty should be. Not just saying, oh, because you have makeup on, you're beautiful to a child, but, instilling in them that when they are working on their homework and they're doing those things, make them beautiful as well.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And Sharon says, thank you for being role models for my sons. And I thought that was an interesting comment because we're talking here a lot about girls and beauty, but there is definitely an important message, an important job as women and as mothers to educate our sons to look beyond the superficial with girls. How do we do that? It's a tough one.
I think by example.
Right?
Tell me what you
By
mean.
example?
Yeah, I mean, we have to lead by example and teach people how to treat us. And, I mean, a lot of this goes across the board. I mean, beauty in men is the same. Attractiveness in men is the same. It's that whatever makes you unique and kind of embracing that.
I'm just curious, I was thinking that we're talking about how the media often has very negative comments or really focuses on the superficial beauty or lack of beauty, depending on whatever they think, with athletes and women who are in the public eye. Have you noticed if these media people are men or women? Have you noticed, like, people who may criticize you, have you noticed if they're men and women?
I see it more like in a magazine or such, and then you don't really know who it is who's writing it, but that's a good thought, though. I wonder who it is then.
Because sometimes men will bring women down. You want to make someone else feel little so you can feel big.
Yeah.
And I think with powerful women, is there something about that intimidates? We are an intimidating bunch sometimes, right? Which is to me,
Yeah,
that's a really
good.
great thing. But perhaps that's something that forces men to, sexualize us so that they can overpower us in a way.
And feel empowered, yeah.
Feel empowered.
I feel like maybe that is something that's happening, but I feel like it's best to focus on what we can do. Do you know what I mean? Rather than what someone else is doing. You can only control yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can never control what anyone else is doing. So I feel like focusing on your opinion of yourself and not so much whomsoever wants to bring you down is more important.
So Julie says, thank you for your words, Winnie. You are an amazing role model.
Thank you. I appreciate
But
that.
how do that core of strength, what you're talking about, how one endures criticism, which is actually, Meg is asking, how do you draw strength? Where do you get that from? There's a strong core in there.
I think I get it from my grandmother. She's
Both
a
of you
very
have said
strong
grandmothers.
woman.
That's interesting.
Oh my God, really? My mom is like a very not fight person, but my grandmother is she always had stories of her upbringing and such, and that she forced us to sit and listen through. But I appreciate them a lot now, I think that helped shape who I am today and my values and strengthen me as a woman.
And for you, where do you draw? Is it from your parents, or is it somewhere else? Did you see something happen in your life and you went, you know what? I'm not going to let that happen to me.
I think it was the people that I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by, my family and friends. And also, I mean, there's something really powerful about setting a goal and working your very hardest to accomplish it. And I think that sort of validation, both external and internal, is the most satisfying feeling. I think that's what I'm constantly chasing. It sounds like Winnie's in the same boat. I mean, that ambition and drive has to come from somewhere, and there's no shortcut to success. There's no easy quick fix or easy recipe. It just comes from hard work, and that sometimes is lost today because everything is about that instant gratification.
I really like you, and I really like you too.
We like you too.
But we have to wrap this up. But I do want to tell you something. What you just said, I think what you just said is really compelling and really speaks to what we're trying to do right now, which is there are no shortcuts for us to change the conversation with the media. That it's going to be hard work, but that it's starting now. That Dove has started that conversation, but now we're passing the torch over to you, because we as moms need to change the conversation that is out there in the media and within our society so that our girls are being raised to understand that their power comes from within, and that we're also going to teach the media and their beauty comes from within, and to tell the media that what they're doing is not acceptable, and that if we go to the dove.ca/have your say, tell them this is not acceptable, and go to Yonge and Dundas and take a look at that screen and see how powerful it is when you see it so large looming in front of you and you say, I cannot believe.
We went to Dundas Square.
It's shocking that these nameless people who are hiding behind their computers can say those kinds of things about people who have devoted their lives to athleticism and to success.
Gold medals.
Gold medals. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue this conversation later tonight, actually. Yay. If you want to join in, you can on Twitter. You can follow YMC Buzz with the hashtag MyBeautyMySay, and we're going to continue this conversation on Twitter. There is so much to talk about. We need to continually inspire young people and ourselves to look in the mirror and say, I am beautiful, and no one will tell me otherwise. Am I right?
Absolutely.
All right, so leave your comments. We'll see you tonight, and there'll be prizes too, just for you coming out and having a conversation. And thank you both, ladies. It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Out.